Well, thanks for setting me up here, Harmony. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Miller Wright. I'm an implementation manager down at McGraw Hill working on ALEKS. It's a lot of fancy words just to say that I'm your go-to guy if something goes wrong in ALEKS or if you have a question about how it works. I wanted to talk about a couple of things that would be useful for you as instructors getting into the course. I think I'm going to start by showing you how to access the course as a student yourself, as you may like, and also how to preview the questions inside of your assignments. From there, as Harmony hinted at, we're going to talk about some reporting features so that you can track how the class has been doing and how to tell if students are working at all. So I'm going to click share screen here, and you guys will have to tell me if this actually worked. I use Teams a lot less often, so I should be sharing the screen with the Newtown High class. I see the thumbs up from Harmony. Thank you very much.
I see it.
So first thing that I want to call out is if you want to experience the class as a student yourself, you just need to click up here on Class Tools and then go to the Student View. I'm on the assignment list right now, but regardless of the page that you are on in your class, this Class Tools link is going to be up here in the top right-ish. So just leaving the assignment list to show that. So Class Tools is still here. If I click on that, you can click on the Student View. This drops you in the class as if you were a student, lets you experience everything the way a student would, but doesn't put any of that in the grade book, so that way you're not cluttering yourself up. So very much recommend using this to go through maybe the initial knowledge check and some of the questions, just so you have a sense of how ALEKS works. That being said, well, no, let's actually do that. Let's start there. I'm going to put myself in the class as a student, and I'm going to talk about the initial knowledge check, probably skip through that, and then do one of the questions within a module, just so that the mastery-based nature of ALEKS is evident here. Oh, looks like I've already started a student view in this one, which actually is helpful for what I need to show. If you want a brand new student view, you can click on Reset right here and then Enter, and that will sort of reset your save file for this student here. So when this is done loading, I will be a brand new me in this class. The very first thing a student sees upon registering is this tools tutorial. All of your students will be well past this at this point in the year, I believe. I'm going to skip past this. It's very general stuff. We just want to make sure that if we're marking students wrong, it's because they don't know math, not because they're wrestling with our tools. Skipping through that here. Right after that, students will see the initial knowledge check. Let's talk about that conceptually for a little bit. I'm going to leave for a second to go to the assignment list in this class, and every class will have identical assignments. This class consists of a bunch of modules. Let's show that off. So there are modules for all of these chapters, 1 through 17. A couple are skipped. There's no 15, right? So the goal is for students to work through all this content. ALEKS, however, works adaptively, meaning these assignments will adapt to what students already know. So the initial knowledge check is a student's chance to test out of parts of the class, in a sense. To zoom in on a module here, this first module is 24 topics, right? And it's a 2-hour time estimate with that 24 topics. If a student does well on the initial knowledge check, this 24 topics may drop down to 12. Maybe this is only an hour long. It is module by module, so it's possible for a student to knock out a significant portion of this first chapter and knock out absolutely nothing in this chapter. Now, to start the initial knowledge check, they just click right here. They get some warnings about how important it is, and then they can start. So, just as an example here, I'm going to use my fancy solve button. Well, I'll do this one in front of you guys because it's not complicated enough for me to embarrass myself. If they get this question right and click submit, they're not going to get any feedback. It just grades it and moves on. It does grade it right away because what it decides to ask them next depends on if they were right or wrong. In general, if they're doing well, it's going to get harder and harder. If they're doing poorly, it's going to sort of get easy, stay easy. It wants to give them credit for something that they know. So I'll get this one wrong. Again, no feedback. We're trying to keep it low stakes. The research has shown that if we're telling students, hey, that's wrong, it sort of freaks them out. They do worse overall. This one I'll get right as well, and so on. Students work through this initial knowledge check. It's about 25 questions. If you have students in your class, they've probably already done this. And I can show off the reports to see, so you can see how your class did on that as well. I'm going to click this skip knowledge check button. It's a special power that I have. Students don't have this. Also, that solve button is something they don't have. After they finish the initial knowledge check, this is their results screen. This thing is called the ALEKS pie. It's a visual representation of their progress in the class. So it's color-coded by topic area. This first one is whole numbers. The student has 20 out of 27 on that, and it cascades from there. The gray is the stuff they don't know. The colored in is the stuff they do. Click next. So right here, it's dropping me into the Chapter 2 module. I should talk about that a little bit. If I go to my assignment list, it says I have 71% of the Chapter 1 module done. So why am I being dropped into Chapter 2? The way your class is set up is with progress gates. In order to move on from one module to another, or I guess I should say in order to unlock the next module, students need to achieve 70% completion of the previous module. Now, correct me if I'm speaking out of turn here, Devon or Harmony, but that doesn't mean they're not expected to complete 100% of the module. It just means they unlock the next one at 70%. Alrighty, so I'm going to click into this Chapter 1 module here. It does say I have 17 out of the 24 already due to the initial knowledge check. So keep that in mind as students get that credit from the initial knowledge check. Now, here's an important thing to talk about. ALEKS, in basically all capacities that you're using it, is mastery based. That means that students need to get questions right a few times before they get credit. If we look at this question, I want to highlight this bar over here split into 5 chunks. If this is covered by my face with Microsoft Teams, move me out of the way so you can see it. We've got a bar with 5 chunks, and it's important to understand that. If a student gets this question right once, this bar starts to fill up. But if they click next, they get a question with different numbers that is testing the same concept. Both of these questions are about order of operations with whole numbers and an exponent. So I got it right once, but I'm still on that topic. I also only have one of the 5 chunks of this bar filled. I'll get the second one right here. And due to being right twice in a row, I get a streak bonus, and it fills up a little faster. One more time, and that will fill up this bar all the way. That is the best case scenario. Well, maybe the second best case scenario, right? The first best case would be they got it right on the initial knowledge check. But the second best would be getting it right 3 times in a row. They'll learn it that way, and then they can move on to another question. I say they can move on. They can always move on by opening this drawer up here at the top, and they can navigate to whatever they would like to work on. So just because you're on a question doesn't mean you have to work on that one specifically. This student has both Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 unlocked, so I'm going to pop over into Chapter 2, and I'll work on this fraction division question instead. Now, one thing that I sort of hand-waved last time that I want to focus on a little more is that every question in ALEKS has an explanation page. Right now, it's called the learning page because the student hasn't started yet, but this thing is the explanation. It tells students exactly how to do the question. So as an example, maybe a student sees this and they're like, I don't even know where to start. If they click explanation, we're going to show them with the numbers that they were just looking at exactly how to get that answer. If they click practice from there, the numbers are going to change, and hopefully they can apply that skill now to this next question. I'm going to get this one right. And you guys remember what happens if I get it right twice in a row, right? I get a streak bonus here. Now the light at the end of the tunnel is in view. I only need to get it right one more time. But maybe then disaster strikes and I get it wrong. Bar drains. The bar drains. So that's a really important thing to understand about the ALEKS interaction. People ask me, how many times does a student have to get a question right to get credit in ALEKS? It's a hard question to answer. They can get it by answering it right 3 times in a row, but also they can get it right once, wrong once, and sort of do that dance for a while, and they're spinning their wheels. They're not making any progress. So the answer is they need to fill up this entire bar. And in order for the bar to be making progress, students need to be getting more than 50% of the answers correct. And again, I do want to issue the reminder that if students are stuck, it's not the right thing to do to just smash their head into the wall and try again. They do have an explanation that will tell them exactly what they're doing wrong, as well as links to videos and the textbook here on the side. So I'll pause there for a second. That's like the first chapter of this presentation, the student experience. Any thoughts, comments, concerns so far? Excellent. Cool. Well, the next thing I want to go over is how to preview individual questions inside of your class. I'm going to click cancel here. And the method that I'm going to show only works if at least one student has enrolled and taken the initial knowledge check. So if you're not in that situation, you may need to wait until you have a student who's taken the initial knowledge check to preview the class. This is also going to be part of the reports conversation because the place we're going to do this is over here in the ALEKS Pi report. So once you're in the class, you can hover over reports and then click ALEKS Pi. I'm going to talk about the actual reports part of this page in a second. The first thing I want to highlight is that all of your modules are here. If you click on one to expand it, it has all of the topics in that module listed. And you can click on any one of those and it will open that question in a pop-up for you to practice to your heart's content or to show off to your class if you're doing some sort of lecture on it. So that works for all of your modules. Doesn't matter if it's the first one or the last one. Now let's talk about what the ALEKS Pi report itself is. This is a report that shows how your students are doing. It's a class aggregate thing. It shows you what your students know. To zoom in here on module 1, it says that currently 97% of students have this whole number place value question. They've got this one learned. 3% do not have it. You can see these numbers here. I'll zoom in a little bit. Sometimes those can be a little small. If I click on one of these percentages, it's going to open a list with the students' names. So this is the one student in this class who does not have that topic. When you click, you're going to see real student names. I have my data anonymized so I don't break any laws here. One thing that I really like to do in a class like this is up here near the top of the report, I can choose what I'm showing. Right now it says current progress. I like to filter it to the initial knowledge check. That way I can see, what did my students know coming into this class? What kind of population am I dealing with? So we'll see here, students knew 80% of the stuff in whole numbers. And they knew a chunk of basically everything. It looks like quadratic equations is the weakest area. Only 18% of those topics are known right now. If I click on whole numbers, I can again get that breakdown. This was at 97 when we looked at it for the current progress. Looks like only 63% of the class came in knowing it. So 30% of the class, more than 30%, went in and learned this topic later. Cool. So this is my favorite way to use the ALEKS Pi report. You can compare your current progress and the initial knowledge check to sort of see how far you've come. And you can also click on those percentages to determine who is where. This is also the best place to preview your questions. Next report that I recommend using is the progress report. This is going to list all of your students one after another and tell you how they're doing. It would also become immediately apparent here if a student hasn't started work because it will say no initial knowledge check found. See if that comes up for any of these. Yep, some of these students didn't take the initial knowledge check, so they can't be working on anything else. These students aren't working. Here we can see what these students know. The dark blue is what they got on the initial knowledge check. The light blue is what they've gone on to learn since. This student spent 15 hours and grinded through everything else, so they're just about done with the class. Not quite, but almost there. This student, as a comparison point, did well on the initial knowledge check, but hasn't done anything since. So you can see that here. And there's varying versions of that story from one student to another after that. Now, if you wanted to dig a little further into a specific student, where I usually recommend starting is on another report, time and topic. Click on this guy. It's going to show you sort of a matrix with how much time students have been spending in the last week. So we'll see here, in the last week, the student spent about 2 hours. This student spent about 4. I'm going to click on this student who spent 4 hours in the last week. And it's going to take me to a really detailed breakdown of what they've been doing. Again, if you do this, you'll be seeing real student names. Now, these bars indicate time spent on the dates below here on the x-axis. If I click on one of these bars, I can see what the students have been doing. Now, the student is doing pretty well on these topics. They're moving pretty quickly. So, it may be up to you sometimes to use this as evidence for whether or not the student is employing some outside assistance to get these problems correct. But let's take a look at this one. It spent 5 minutes here interpreting direct variation from a graph, and they actually sort of gave up on it. They got 3 wrong, and they said, I'm going to spend my time on something else. Can't blame them there. But if you're curious about the kind of answers they've been getting wrong, you can click on one of these, and it will open up a pop-up with the exact question the student was looking at and their answer. So they were a little off. This is a good place to come, I would say, whenever you're having a one-on-one conversation with a student. They come to you and they say, hey, I'm struggling with X, Y, or Z. They may tell you, I've been spending hours on this problem. And then you ask them, well, what problem is it? And they tell you, I don't know, one of the ones you assigned. This is a place that you can come to directly see what they have been working on and what they have answered. So you can have a more informed conversation. If a student tells you they spent 20 hours in ALEKS, you can open this up and you can tell them, nope, actually, you only spent 2 and I can see the stuff you worked on. That's really the stuff that I like reports-wise in ALEKS. These 3, ALEKS Pi, Progress, and Time and Topic. These are a really good way, just I would say, to see how your class is doing, see if individual students are working, and really dig deeper into specific students on the time they're spending and what they're working on. So those would be the ones that I recommend using. But there are, of course, others that you can feel free to play around in as well. This is probably the easiest way to see their last login. You can also filter here by clicking on it, and it will list, hey, these are all the people that have logged in today. That's great. This is a large percentage of the class. This student who hasn't done the initial knowledge check just signed up yesterday, so maybe there's a chance they will finish it. Another thing that we have in this class is these scheduled knowledge checks at the end of the class. They're kind of identical. It's just made this way so that students have 3 tries. This is a post-test that students can take. Let me remind myself how these are set up. Yep, they are assigned to all students, but are password protected. So up to you to decide when these are being administered. But the idea of this test is to check to make sure that students are actually retaining all the stuff that they're working on the ALEKS modules. If they're cheating through these at home, if they're doing this in-person proctored, this should help identify that pretty quickly. If students get things wrong on this post-test, it will remove those topics from their Pi. So they would have to go back and learn them again. So I am not as familiar with what the strategy was for when to administer these, but I do want to call out that they are password protected, and there are 3 identical tests here. There's only 3, so that there are 3 attempts.
Students should, I'll jump in to answer that question for you, Miller. Just like our old product with Pearson, students should have at minimum a 70% or greater with each module, and verified by the facilitator before giving the password to take that post test.
We are new to this program, so how do we get our kids registered for it?
Excellent. So that is the easy part. Let me just to confirm for myself here, you guys are not we're not pairing to any sort of Canvas, Blackboard, or D2L, are we? Excellent. So this is pretty easy. What you will do is each one of the ALEKS classes has a unique class code right here. So it will be listed here in your course. This is the one for Newtown, so don't necessarily write this one down if it's not yours. So when you're logged in, looking at your class, you can grab this course code. Students will put this course code in on aleks.com. So just to show that page for a second, I got to move the Teams bar here. So aleks.com, there is a sign up area and students will drop a course code right here. And then reminding myself, I don't think they're asked for payment, right? This is covered by Dakota College. Let me remind myself.
Yep.
Yep.
I will count them up, and I've been given who I needed to put the count to, so it's completely covered by the state.
Excellent. And if at any point your students encounter access issues, like if they try to register and it tells them they need an access code or something like that, come straight to me, I'll get it fixed.